You right now, in a completely safe room, would still tense up if the lights suddenly went out. Doesn't matter how many times you've walked across that room in daylight. Doesn't matter that you know exactly where the door is, where the bed is, where nothing dangerous has ever been hiding. The second the darkness hits, so old wiring in your brain quietly switches on. That reaction isn't about your bedroom. It's not really about tonight at all. It's one of the oldest fears we can trace in humans. Older than writing. Older than farming. Older almost certainly than language itself. So the real question is this. When did humans start being afraid of the dark? And why, after everything we've built, cities, electricity, security systems, has that fear never actually gone away? To answer that, we have to go back before humans were even humans. Our early primate ancestors lived up in trees, and that wasn't a lifestyle choice. It was survival math. On the ground, especially at night, they were prey. Big cats, hyenas, snakes, most of the animals hunting them had far better night vision, sharper senses, and the advantage of surprise. Any ancestor who felt totally relaxed wandering around in pitch darkness usually didn't live long enough to have descendants. So evolution did something almost embarrassingly simple. It kept the anxious ones alive. Think about that. The trait we now casually call being scared of the dark wasn't a design flaw. It was a filter. Every generation that felt genuinely uneasy at night was a little more likely to stay close to the group, stay still, stay hidden, and wake up the next morning to try again. Fast forward a few million years, and early humans are out of the trees entirely, living on open savanna. No branches to retreat into, no natural walls, just flat ground and a sky that goes properly, thickly black once the sun drops. This is where fire changes everything. Archaeological evidence from sites like Wonderwork Cave in South Africa points to controlled fire use going back roughly 1 million years. And separately, excavations at Gesher Banat Yaakov in Israel have turned up burned material dated to around 790,000 years ago, suggesting fire use wasn't a one-off fluke, but something happening independently across different early human groups. Once fire became reliable, night stopped being pure exposure. Suddenly, there was a small circle of visibility, a wall of orange light holding the blackness back, at least for a few meters. But here's the thing, fire didn't erase the fear, it organized it. The space around the fire became safe. The dark just past its edge became unknown. And to a human brain, unknown has always meant treat as dangerous until proven otherwise. That's not superstition. That's just efficient risk management from a species that really did not want to get eaten mid-sleep. Here's what makes this so important. Fear of the dark was never really about darkness itself. It's fear of not knowing what's inside it. Roughly 70% of our sensory processing is devoted to sight. Take that away, and your other senses don't calmly step in to cover the gap. Your brain starts guessing instead, filling silence with possibilities, turning a creaking branch into a possible predator. Every rustle becomes a question mark, and your nervous system would rather overreact 100 times than miss the one real threat. Same reaction, completely different century. There's a physical side to this too. Human eyes are actually terrible at adjusting to darkness compared to a lot of nocturnal predators. It takes your eyes around 20 to 30 minutes to fully adapt to low light, and even then, your night vision is nowhere close to a cat's or an owl's.
We traded night vision for incredible daytime color vision instead, which is great for spotting ripe fruit and reading facial expressions, and genuinely bad for spotting whatever's moving at the edge of camp at 2 a.m.
So we built a workaround. Fire. Then walls. Then doors that lock. Skip ahead to early human settlements, and you can watch this fear physically shape architecture. Walls facing outward. Entrances that could be blocked. Entire daily schedules built around getting everyone inside and the fire lit before the light disappeared completely. And it wasn't just practical, it became deeply cultural. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner, who studied the Juhuansi people of the Kalahari, found something fascinating about firelight conversations specifically. Daytime talk tended to be practical. Complaints, logistics, gossip about who did what. But nighttime, fireside talk shifted almost entirely towards storytelling. Myths, cautionary tales, accounts of the supernatural. The dark didn't just create fear. It created a specific time and place built for passing warnings down through story. And nearly every ancient culture we have records for shows the same pattern. Mesopotamian texts, ancient Egyptian funerary writing, early Chinese folklore, oral traditions from societies that had zero contact with each other. All of them describe darkness as the domain of something. Spirits, demons, predators, restless dead. The specific monster changes. The underlying rule doesn't. Darkness hides something, and that something is not on your side. That's not coincidence. That's shared human wiring, expressing itself through completely different languages and completely different mythologies at completely different points in history. Here's the pivot that reframes everything. This fear didn't fade as humans got smarter. If anything, it became more specific, more detailed, more deliberately reinforced. Once language matured, a warning stopped being just a feeling and became a sentence. Don't go out there at night could now be spoken, remembered, repeated exactly. And once full storytelling developed, that warning got wrapped in narrative, which turns out to be an extremely effective delivery system for a lesson. A vivid, scary story about the dark forest travels a lot further and sticks a lot harder than a nervous glance ever could. Think about that. We didn't just inherit this fear biologically. We reinforced it socially, on purpose, for tens of thousands of years, one bedtime story at a time. Which brings us to something almost every parent recognizes instantly. Fear of the dark, peaking hard in children, somewhere around ages 3 to 6. Developmental researchers point out this is right around when a child's imagination becomes fully active, but their ability to logically talk themselves out of a fear hasn't caught up yet. You get just enough brain to invent a monster under the bed, and not quite enough brain yet to reason your way out of believing it. Basically, evolution handed kids a powerful imagination before it handed them the manual for managing it. Rough deal, honestly. There's also a strange, specific phenomenon tied to darkness that shows up across cultures with almost eerie consistency. Sleep paralysis. That brief, terrifying state between sleep and waking, where you're conscious but temporarily unable to move, often paired with a crushing sense that something is in the room with you. Researchers studying sleep paralysis have found remarkably similar descriptions across wildly different societies. An old hag in parts of Europe, a night demon in parts of Asia, a sitting ghost elsewhere. Different names, same basic terrifying experience. It's a biological glitch in the sleep cycle that different cultures independently explained the exact same way. Something bad, in the dark, near you. And here's the part that really raises the stakes.
This isn't some outdated leftover instinct quietly gathering dust in the back of your brain. Studies using brain imaging show that in low light or dark conditions, the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, actually shows increased activity compared to well-lit conditions.
Cortisol, one of your stress hormones, can rise slightly in unfamiliar dark environments too. Your body isn't performing some outdated party trick. It's running the same basic threat assessment program our ancestors relied on out on the savannah. Less visibility, more alertness. Prepare for possible danger. You're not imagining that tension when the lights go out. You're running software that's hundreds of thousands of years old on hardware you happen to be wearing right now. Even in the modern world, with electric light everywhere, this fear hasn't disappeared. It's just relocated. Night shift workers report higher rates of anxiety symptoms tied specifically to overnight hours. Hospitals and cities intentionally overlight parking structures and stairwells, not randomly, but because low visibility measurably increases reported fear, even in places that are statistically extremely safe. We built an entire modern industry, street lights, night lights, security lighting, around managing a fear that technically has almost nothing left to be afraid of. So here's the full picture. It starts with tree-dwelling ancestors who survived specifically because they avoided the dangerous dark ground below them. Then early humans on open plains, using controlled fire, possibly independently invented in more than one place, to carve out small islands of safety in the night. Then permanent settlements with walls and doors, engineered around the simple goal of keeping darkness outside. Then myths and firelight storytelling, passing that exact warning down through language instead of instinct alone. Then children, generation after generation, hitting a window where imagination outpaces logic. Then modern brain scans, showing that same ancient alarm system still quietly firing every time the lights switch off. Which brings us back to you, reaching for your phone the instant a room goes dark. That's not weakness, and it was never irrational. That's hundreds of thousands of years of survival strategy still running quietly in a bedroom that has, statistically, exactly 0 predators in it. Being human means walking around with an ancient nervous system tucked inside a completely modern life. Half the time, we're not really afraid of what's actually out there in the dark. We're afraid of what used to be. If you're into more of these why humans are like this deep dives, there's a whole channel built around exactly this kind of question.